What's up, everybody? Ethos Creed here. You may have seen the thumbnail of this video where I'm basically saying, stop taking certification courses to learn computer science and to learn AI, basically. Now, I'm not saying that there's no value in taking certifications to learn these things. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is sometimes we feel like we're being productive by taking tons of courses thinking that an employer is going to hire us. And after I've done some digging and talked to people who work as people who work in data analytics or AI or cybersecurity, even if you go on Indeed or like these job sites that have these listings where it just basically is like you need to have 30 years of experience and you have to have a PhD in computer science and you have to have all of this experience. You're like, how in the world am I supposed to get this experience? Like, how is this even possible? How are people getting these jobs? If you're like me, you're like, oh man, it'd be nice to make a six-figure income and work from home or work remote. It would be so nice, right? Reason why I bring all this up is not to say that certifications are bad. What I am saying is that they only give you a foundational knowledge, just like a general knowledge, principles of how things work. If you're like into coding, or you're like me, I'm right now, I've been really into the vibe coding thing. I know a lot of people hate on it because you have people who have gone to school for coding, then AI comes out of nowhere, practically takes over the world. And then the people who went to school for coding are like, wait, this software is just going to take my job? Like, you could just sit here and vibe code. I went to school and got all this information, got all this knowledge on how to make scripts. And just for this thing to just basically print it out instantaneously just by telling it what I'm trying to create. Hello, ChatGPT. I'm trying to create an app, like a daily task app, or I'm trying to create a social media application or something, and then just like print, done. You're telling me that this can just replace all these people who got these master's degrees and PhDs and went to school all these years? Well, vibe coding, the trap about vibe coding would be this, is that you can get addicted, to creating applications. No, basically using it for your job because it helps you to get from point A to point B really fast without having to do a lot of thinking and just more talking and basically less thinking. Where the AI agent does everything for you and you can kind of just briefly review what it did and not really dig deep to find any flaws. And then if you see an error, you just tell it, oh, there was an error here. Copy, paste error from the terminal, and then give it to Codex, give it to Cloud Code, and then it just fixes it, right? And maybe if it messes it up multiple times, at least you could just tell it, oh, here's the problem now. Oh, now the app's not working now. Here's how I need it to be. And then it just fixes it. And so, but what I'm saying is this, is like, if you want to have an edge, while you're vibe coding, have apps like ChatGPT, Codex, Claude Code, have it teach you what it is doing while you are creating your application, whatever it is that you're creating with these coding apps. And that's what I'm doing, where I'm basically turned the AI into a teacher. And I'm learning a whole lot faster using the AI to teach me rather than going through some certification program that's just going to give you this very general information that doesn't really, it's the value, you get like this much value out of it. You get value, but it's just like this much. But you get a whole lot of value by having an idea and thinking to yourself, well, I have this idea for an app that I want to make. Okay, great. Go into Google Docs or go into your Word document and write out everything that it is that you want to create. And then here's what I recommend. When you're creating an application, and I don't say this as an expert, I don't got the master's degree, I don't have the PhD, but I am creating a an application right now that is an AI chatbot that requires no internet. It's all local on a, it could be on a cell phone, on an iPhone. It can be on an iPhone 13 Pro Max or an iPhone 17 Pro Max. It could be on a MacBook and on an iPad. Right now it's about to be for iOS devices. In another video, I kind of demonstrated its capabilities. And if you want to see that video, probably going to be in the description somewhere, or maybe it pops up on this video. And because I had this idea that I wanted to have an app that's like ChatGPT that you can have voice conversations with, that basically all your data belongs to you. That was my goal. And so definitely not able to create an application as smart as ChatGPT locally, because they got billions and trillions of parameters of data inside these language models, that it's getting its information from so many places. I just needed a small version of like a chat GPT, right? Like for example, if the internet goes out and I don't know how to mess with the router or something, but you could just turn on this app and you could talk to it and it'll guide you step by step on what to do. And all the information is in your phone. You can ask this thing a theological question like, explain the Trinity in the Bible, and then it'll give you an explanation of the Trinity or something. Or you can say like, tell me about Socrates, and it'll tell you about Socrates. Now, obviously ChatGPT and these other apps are going to be way smarter, but that was my goal. I wanted to create an app that does that. But then I'm like, okay, well, I'm taking these certification courses. I'm not going to really be able, you could, but it's going to take longer to be able to just do it all manually and just sit there, type and try to remember syntax and scripting and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't got time. So then I realized, and now I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but this is just me. This is my observation. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And there's going to be a lot of people out there who, you've been doing this for years, and I just got started within the past couple of years, right? So I'm not, like, again, I'm not claiming to be an expert, but what I'm saying is what I've realized for myself is what's more important is getting the actual result that you were trying to get. Not necessarily having all of the knowledge, but there's so much coding that goes into these apps. It's impossible to memorize all the script. It's just impossible. I heard someone say that getting into computer science and coding is like a mile wide. Like there's like so much information, but then you have to go an inch deep in one specific area and get good at that one thing, because you can't learn it all at once. Maybe you could. I don't know. Maybe you could be like an Elon Musk or something. Maybe Elon Musk got that kind of a brain. I don't. So for me, realizing it's more important to actually get the result that you were trying to get, not necessarily trying to memorize everything. So that's impossible. Just stop doing that. Maybe I won't say it's impossible. Again, maybe it is possible. Maybe I'm just not smart enough. I don't know. So I'll explain to you what works for me. What works for me is having a workflow. You got to have a workflow when you're creating an app, because I see these videos online, and maybe you've seen them, but I've seen these videos where somebody uses like the latest AI to create an app, and they'll prompt the AI and say, I want to create an application that does XYZ, or I want to create a video game, or I want to create whatever it is. And they explain what their desire is. But then it's like in one prompt, the entire application was just created. And I'm like, I've never had that. Where for me, whenever I've been doing this vibe coding thing, I will explain in detail what it is that I want. I want to create XYZ. I want to create an application that is a local chat bot that requires no internet. You could put your phone on airplane mode and have a voice conversation like ChatGPT with the AI. That's what I want to do. Enter. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we'll do that. And then it starts creating something. And then error, all these different errors, caution, error. And you're like, what the heck's going on? All these errors popping up. And then this is where the general knowledge becomes useful, where I see all these errors and then I start reading what's in the terminal. And then I don't completely understand what's in the terminal, but I have a general understanding that when I see these errors, I'm like, okay, I kind of know what that is. I know what it's pointing to. I don't know exactly how to solve it. But if I try to explain to the AI, hey, there's all these errors with my app, it's not working, it's not responding, it's not talking. I tried to text it and then I hit enter and it didn't respond. How do I get it to respond with coherently? And then you start seeing different things where you're like, okay, well, I have to manually download something. Like I have to manually download a language model that can fit into a phone. I'm kind of giving you some of the stuff, some of the secrets that I've figured it out. Or you might have to get different packages where you have to download and implement it into the application. Great. So you figure all that out. And while you're doing it, you're not only are you using your general knowledge that you got from the certification, but the certification didn't teach you all of these different problems that would arise. So then this is when you start asking the AI that you're working with, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude Code, what do these errors mean? Okay, great. How do we solve it? And then it tries to solve it for you. You tell it, then you whatever it is, maybe you got a phone and you're testing your app on your phone, right? Could because you're using Xcode, which is also using Swift UI. I don't want to go into detail all this stuff. This channel is more for like the people who are like me, who you're not completely familiar with all the coding lingo and all the techie stuff. I'm just, for me, all I know is that I am a man who just wants a result. And so with that in mind, like I said, when you're running into these errors and then you have it solve the error and you explain what the error is and then you test the app on your phone or on your computer or whatever, and then you're seeing the flaws and you're explaining what the flaws and you're telling it, this is the result that I want. This is what it's giving me. This is the result that I want. And then it finally comes together. And there's all this script and you're like, what does all this mean? I don't completely know. And then you can ask it to just read it off and you tell it, or you copy and paste and have it explain to you what it all means. And then it'll explain it. So it'll explain everything to you. And then by the time it explains it to you, like once you get something working, and then it explains to you why it works or why it didn't work before. And then you start seeing the patterns, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'm starting to see how this all works. So part of my workflow is trying to think in layers, because it's not completely linear when you're trying to create your own app vibe coding. It's not completely linear because you will have so many different files, so much scripting, so much written down, and then you're taking tons of notes. And that's another thing that helps a lot, is taking tons and tons and tons of notes. And anytime an error pops up, I go on my Google Docs, I type in what the error was. I'll say, this isn't working, or I have like a list of things that need to be fixed and things that need to be added to the app, and it'll be like a checkbox, like a checklist of things. And then every time I solve one thing, I hit the checkbox and it's crossed out, and then I go to the next problem that I want to solve, or the next thing that I want to add to the app. And then you add something in, you add something to your app, and then as a result of adding something to your app, something else breaks, right? When you're testing your app, you're like, wait, I fixed this thing over here, but now that I added this new thing, this other thing broke in my app, right? Like I added a voice to my app, but for some reason, after adding the voice to the app, all of a sudden the app starts to crash or something. And then you're like, okay, why is it doing this? And you're like, well, then you realize, oh, okay, maybe it's using too much GPU. GPU, VRAM, all this mess. It's taking up too much space on your device. Who knows what the issue is? Or maybe the language model. The language model and the voice model are both competing for the same RAM space. I think that's the best way I could explain it, right? Again, I am currently learning these things as I am going right now. So if I got all this incorrect, you just let me know. Competing for the same just working space. So then once you start seeing these things and you start solving each problem and then you're recognizing, okay, well, you have to think in layers. You're like, okay, number one, when I'm creating this app, what's the first thing I want the thing to do? Okay, this chatbot that I'm creating, the number one thing I want to do before I get it to respond with a voice, I want it to just simply be able to respond with text. If I get on my phone and I sit there and message the AI, send a text message and hit enter, and then it responds with text. I need that first. Before it responds with a voice, I just need it to respond in text first. Great. After you play with it, and then it finally responds in text. And then you're like, okay, great. Next layer. I need it to respond with a voice. Great. Now, the next layer is, well, it can respond with a voice. You finally got that part to where it responds with the text and voice. But now I need it to also hear the user, myself, that I can use my own voice. And then my voice turns into text on the phone, gets sent to the AI as text. It responds with text and a voice at the same time, kind of like ChatGPT. So, but it all started with number one, needing it to respond with a text response first before adding a voice to the AI or having it hear you respond with your voice. And you start doing it in layers. And then you're like, okay, well, it's responding with a voice now, but I want it to be like a different voice. Right now it's a male voice or a female voice, and I want it to be like the opposite, or I want it to have an accent or something. And then you change that. But then when you're doing these things, like I said, you have to think in layers where, again, the app can break. So this is when I really learned, oh, I need to start using things like GitHub. I'm like, I didn't really know the power of GitHub. I didn't know. And then on Xcode, there's this thing called branches, right? So here's like your main project. You're like, okay, here's the AI. It can respond with a text response. But I want it to respond with a voice as well. Okay, so instead of breaking what I just built over here, instead of breaking this, let me create a branch over here where everything over here remains exactly the same as the way the app is working right now. Well, that'll go untouched. I need it to be able to respond with a voice. So basically, here's going to be a duplicate version of your main project. It's a branch. It breaks off. And this is all stuff that I learned recently. I'm like, oh, I did not know the power of this. This is crazy. Like this can really help with the fact that, like, I'm not an expert in this. And if my project breaks, at least I can always have a foundation. So anyways, you go to your branch. It's basically just a duplicate of what you've already built. You could tell Claude Code or Codex to create a new branch, and then it creates a new branch. And then in this branch over here, I'm going to try to add a voice to the AI. So then it begins to add a voice over here, and it starts playing with the code and creates new files, and it does all this stuff because you're giving it permission to do it on your device, on your computer. And then let's say, for example, now you want to test to see if it works. So then you upload the app from Xcode or whatever to your phone or on your computer that you're using, and you test to see if it works. Dang, it didn't work. The app crashes, and you're like, oh crap, did I do this wrong? Don't worry about it. Give it the errors, whatever, and then once it fixes it, and it works, well, now that it works and it's responding with a voice, this can become the main branch now. So it branched off your main project over here, created a duplicate branch. You made some tweaks over here. The tweaks worked. Now you make this the new foundation now, to where if this breaks, or not, well, not this part breaks. If you branch off and you try to add something else to the application, if that breaks, well, at least you don't have to start completely all over again from scratch. You can just go back to your main branch. And you can even tell the AI, go back to the main branch. And this is what, again, like I'm saying, I've seen people do it where you're having the AI do everything for you, which is, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying it's not completely wise, because you might be running into an error and it's like repetitively running into a loop where it tries to solve a problem and then it recreates the problem, and then it kind of solves the problem partially, not just not completely to your liking, and then you try to do it again and then you're like, what the heck's going on here? And it's just going in this loop, and then you're not catching it because you're not reading the terminal. You're not reading like what's popping up, and you're not having a conversation with the AI about like, hey, how do I fix this issue? Or what is the problem that we're running into? If you just have a conversation with the AI, it will explain to you what it's trying to do and the error that it's running into. And then you can even ask it, hey, do you think that the way we are going about this is actually going to work? It'll usually be honest with you and say, well, and I've had this happen with me where the AI tells me, well, the way you're trying to do this is not typically the way you're normally supposed to do it. And I'm like, wait, that's all I needed to know. Like, you're trying to do something. Okay. So then I realized I need, whenever I'm going to tell the AI to do something, I need to come up with a prompt to add to it that basically ensures that the AI is going to be honest with me and tell me like that it thinks that this is going to work or it's not going to work, right? So I can, every now and then I'll just ask it just honestly, like, do you think that this will work? And then I'll also add in there something like this, where I'll say, what is the industry standard way of solving X problem, whatever the problem is? I ask it, what's the industry way of doing it? Or I might ask like what's OpenAI's way of solving this issue? Or Gemini, Google's, like, what's their way of fixing this issue that I'm trying to solve? And then it'll give you an explanation of whatever it is. And then you say, okay, compare it to my app and what we can collect and how we can implement some of this to my application, how they solve these issues. And it'll give you an explanation. And once it gives you this explanation, you ask it, okay, based on your explanation, can you begin implementing what you just said into my app now? You said that they did it this way. I want to do it that way too. And then so you do that, and then like if it breaks, well, at least you have this new foundation, this foundation where if something breaks, at least you could just delete that portion of it, and but you don't lose the other part of the project that you worked on. And so that's something new. And so GitHub is useful for that. And now if you're like, I don't want to explain how all of this works as far as GitHub does, as far as GitHub, but what you can do is use ChatGPT or Gemini or any of these apps, and then ask it like, what is GitHub? Why is GitHub important? Teach me how to use it. And it'll show you step by step how to upload your files to GitHub. And so basically, if your project ever breaks, you always have a place you can go to be like, okay, this portion broke. I can just delete it. Let me go back to the main portion of my app that actually works. And I'll start from there again rather than starting the entire project all from scratch again. And now I'm going on and on, I'm rambling. And I'm trying to deliver as much value as I can, because like I'm giving you in real time what I have been doing these past couple months. because I'm like, it would be cool to work my way into like software engineering or computer science or something of this nature, or AI engineering or AI application engineering, whatever it is. And I think the best way to learn genuinely is getting the hands-on experience and running into the errors. And you're going to run into a lot of errors over and over and over, thousands of errors over and over again. Then you have to solve them, and you have to read the terminal, and you have to read what the problem is and have the AI explain to you what the problem is. And then when it solves a problem, you ask it, how did it solve it? When it runs into a problem, you ask it, why is this problem here? And then you just keep doing it, and you're just getting all this information. It's like you're just being uploaded with like you're basically becoming an AI yourself. Like, so then you get to a point where when you're having a conversation with the AI, you're understanding what it's saying. And then one of the things that I've done also to learn faster is I need a visual. I'm a very visual learner, right? And when you're looking at code, you're just like, what does all this mean? Why is this all important? How does this all apply? But if you ask the AI, can you give me an analogy as to how this all works, right? Or if you're going to start a project and you explain whatever the project is that you want to do. I don't know, you want to create your own fitness app or something. And you explain in detail how you want your fitness app to look and how you want it to interact with the user and what features are on there. And then you have the AI explain everything to you as to what you would need for the project. And like, what kind of devices do you want it on? Do you want it to be in a cloud service? You explain everything that you want. And then it'll tell you, all right, here's everything that you need. And then you ask it questions like, is there any blind spots that I could be missing? You take everything from, let's say, ChatGPT explains everything to you. Then you give it to like Claude Code or you give it to Gemini and you have them have those apps expound upon on that and look for any loopholes, or not loopholes, but blind spots that you may have. So then if there's a ton of terminology that it's giving you, and you're like, I don't understand all this terminology, list all of the terminology that you don't understand, and then have a conversation with the AI about all the terminology and have it explain to you every piece of terminology that you can. I didn't know what RAG augmentation meant. I didn't know what a vector database. I had to learn SQL, all these things you might not even be familiar with what the heck I'm saying. But I'm telling you these things because I'm like, okay, now for me, I have a foundational understanding of what all this terminology meant. And I was going to take some certification courses to learn all these things. And I already learned some of these things in some of these certification courses. But the certification courses I was taking, this doesn't, you're just memorizing words and definitions of words. But learning words and definitions of words doesn't give you understanding. It just gives you this head knowledge that you're not even going to remember. But what helps you remember is when you eventually get to a point where you actually have to implement, like for me, RAG augmentation or vector database. You're like, what is that? Or LLM, large language model. You're like, what does all this mean? Once you actually have to use it for an application because you found a project that you're actually interested in doing, and you're like, well, I really want to create a fitness app or I really want to create my own AI. Great. It's something that you're actually interested in. So it helps you to learn even more because there's a result that you desire. And now you're more likely to actually absorb the information because you're trying to get a result rather than sitting through a course and you're like, okay, well, I'm learning all the definitions of these words, but I don't know what this all means. It's better, in my perspective, to learn all this terminology in actual practice while you're creating applications so that it doesn't leave your memory. Because now there's I guess you can just put it like this. There's an emotion tied to the knowledge because there's a desire that you have where I want this outcome. In order to get this outcome, I have to learn these things. So now you're more likely to remember it because you really want that outcome. And so, anyways, my DoorDash just got here not too long ago. I got to go eat. However, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, my name is Ethos Creed. Go into like the video, comment below, subscribe, tell me your thoughts about this video, and just, I'm trying my best here. I don't really completely know exactly what I'm doing on this channel, but what I do know is I'm like, you know what? While I am learning, you know, computer science and AI and engineering and all this stuff and software development, while I'm learning it, I might as well just share with people what I'm learning and how I'm learning. And so there's actually a lot more that I actually wanted to say in this video, but I know that I can go on forever and talk. So yeah, I hope you got something out of this video. And if you got any value from it, let me know. Comment below. Tell me your thoughts. God bless.